Hello and welcome to Sloth. I feel like I haven't been giving you guys enough Hearts of Iron 4 content, so I've made up a whole other channel to give you more terrible content. I won't explain too much about this channel. It's simply stuff that I feel like shouldn't really be on the main channel, but also maybe you want to see it, so it's on a different channel, far away from the YouTube algorithm. And what better way to really start the slop off than with a tier list? Now, if you didn't know, I've played quite a bit of Hearts of Iron 4, so I might be somewhat of an expert on how to waste your money on all of this crap. Okay, let's start off with base game Hoi 4. Okay, you've just bought the game for the first time, probably on a Steam sale, and you're greeted by angry Chinese people. Already a good sign. And you get in the game and realize that you can't block off C tiles. The button's not here as you have to pay for it. What DLC do I have to buy to see this guy? Okay, realistically, base game Hoi 4 isn't too bad now because they've actually integrated a whole bunch of the first few DLCs into this, which is why this isn't getting rated too much, because we do want to give a whole bunch of criticism to those DLCs when they come up. But for base game Hoi 4, I do reckon it's pretty good now. Well, give or take a few things. Obviously, you have the original designs for tanks, so to actually edit them, all you do is you go over here, you click button or button or button or button. Yep, same thing goes for ships and also your planes. You're going to have to hand over those gold coins to get this stuff. But I won't go too much depth. I did do a whole video on base game Hoi and what's good and what's bad about it now. And overall, I do think it's in a way better shape than it was if you were just to buy the game before they integrated all those DLCs. So I will put base game Hoi 4 just in the sense that if you had bought the game, unfortunately for you, by the way, and then booted it up, you'd probably have a pretty enjoyable experience. Or you'd lose to France and Poland because you don't know how to play it. It's fun, it's playable, but it's not exactly great. There are a few crucial things missing. We're going to put it in C tier, right in the middle. But also remember, a few of the things we're going to be criticizing in a few of these early DLCs are actually now in base game Hoi 4, but we're going to have to kind of wind it back in our mind in how bad they used to be to really understand the problem here. Together for victory. That was pretty easy. Now, there are some good things about Together for Victory. I do think the Canada focus tree is pretty fun and a great nation for you to start out in and really get to grasp how the game works without really being in too much danger. And with the new changes they made to the focus tree, you can also boost your economy and also get manpower now, so you're no longer locked out of a whole bunch of stuff. It's even better than ever to play as them. Yeah, but you also get some fun things like managing your subjects. You couldn't do that before the DLC, which is very odd. But you also get a few bad things like the New Zealand focus tree, and a few bad things like the Australian focus tree, and a few bad things like the Indian focus tree. Overall, Together for Victory, I'm glad it was no longer a DLC and just in the base game because it wasn't very good, but it did add crucial things that the game needed. So realistically, yeah, it's probably a D tier. D for don't buy it, by the way. It's hard for me to admit it, but Together for Victory, it did add some things. The Canada focus tree is pretty good, but you don't have to buy it anymore. So if you did have to buy it, I would put it down to F, but it's in the base game now, so yeah. Do I judge it on what it was or what it is currently? It's hard to tell, but either way, DF depending on if you spent money on this thing. Okay, next up, we got Death or Dishonor. Alright, now Death or Dishonor is going to be an interesting one because I did like it a lot back in the day, mostly down to, of course, the Austro-Hungarian Reformation you could do. But as time has gone on, it's definitely safe to say that all of the focuses that were added in this DLC are now very, very, very lacking. For Death or Dishonor, you got yourself Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, and Yugoslavia. And Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Yugoslavia's focus trees are not very good. Some of them have been reworked in little patches and updates, and once again, I do want to let you know that this is now in base game Hoi 4, so you no longer have to buy it, which takes a little bit of the sting out of it, or puts a massive sting in it, because I did have to buy this DLC. And you know, I did have a lot of fun playing Hungary and reforming Austro-Hungaria for the 10 billionth time. but that's all you can do in this DLC. But the question is, just through those few focus trees, which all of them objectively not very good, probably fun one time around, but compared to some of the DLCs that come out later, they're definitely looking bad. As with Together for Victory, it's hard to judge them because they're now integrated into the base game. But the problem is that I did have to buy this piece of crap, and sure, I had fun, but I no longer have fun with it. Goodbye, Devil Dishonor. Also, yeah, there's a ton of bias here because I do still have fun with Together for Victory, but only for one nation. One nation that's literally why this is in D tier right now. But yeah, I definitely do not have fun with Hungary anymore, so I can happily say Devil Dishonor, not very good. And if you still had to buy it to this day, I'd put it lower. Okay, next up, first objectively good DLC, Waking the Tiger. Okay, so Waking the Tiger edited the Japanese focus tree, the Chinese, and the Chinese warlords, including Manchukuo, by the way, and for some reason also gave Germany its alt history path, which is, now that I think about it, kind of weird. But as you can see at the patch and the DLC that follows, this came with so many good features. We got Border Wars, terrible feature by the way, Japanese puppet states, which if you don't know is this stuff right here. It really doesn't make any difference when I think about it. You also get military attaches, air supply, command power, combat boost, strategic bombing, prioritization, division, consolidation, mini-map. You had to pay to get the mini-map. Multiplayer pings, acclimatized uniforms, air volunteers, army icons, and prospecting for resources. It's crazy how much this DLC added, along with the patch, I believe. Now, it is safe to say that once again, the DLC for this has aged very poorly when it comes to focus trees, though. I do think you can still have quite a bit of fun with the Chinese ones, even though they are, you know, a little bit samey. Really samey. But yeah, overall, I think all of the nations and their focus trees definitely need a bit of a rework. The Japanese one in particular is very stinky. In fact, I might go as far to say that the Japanese focus tree is on par with what the Italian focus tree used to be. Not quite as close, but in the current game, this is the new Italian focus tree. If you don't know what that's in reference to, it's the fact that Italy used to have a very small and very terrible focus tree. They did edit it though. You got a free update and you got all of this cool new Italian one. So even if you don't have the DLC, you got a lot to work with Italy. But Japan? Oh, it's bad. But yeah, again, this is also now in base game Hoi 4, so it's hard to rate it off of what it currently is compared to what it was when it came out. But what it was when it came out was definitely a game changer, so I have to rate it kind of high. But I do want to say that I am rating it at a B, which is B for pretty good, but it does show its age quite a bit. And I think if I was judging it solely on what it has currently, it would be lower. But as DLCs go, it did change a lot of things and put the game on a new big breath of fresh air. Okay, next up though, we got one that's kind of forgettable in my little brain that's been rotted from too much grand strategy games, Man the Guns. Now, Man the Guns, in terms of what it actually added for nations on the focus tree, was actually quite a lot. It gave you a updated US focus tree, not fully revamped. It added a whole bunch of ahistorical paths though, which, you know, I'm surprised, you know, I ain't gonna say much. So we got the US, we also got the UK, Mexico, which, I completely forgot that this was in this DLC, along with the Netherlands. And honestly, just from that alone, sure, the US and the UK only got reworks, but the Mexican focus tree, along with the Netherlands one, I do think are pretty good in kind of a weird way, though. Yeah, surely they're kind of in the weird place between how Paradox used to do the old focus trees and how they do the new ones, where they're not exactly completely flushed out in some areas, but they do have a lot of content and a lot of different paths for you to do. I mean, the Mexican one is very good. I do enjoy playing Mexican Trotsky, which isn't a surprise to anyone. And the US is definitely one of my favorite nations to play, although realistically, I never ever do like the ahistorical stuff over here. I only ever do continue the New Deal, limited intervention, or neutrality act. There's no in between on what I do here. I definitely think the US as well has a very, very weak focus tree in comparison to what it is for a major power. I mean, just looking at like the Soviet focus tree and looking at the Italian focus tree, which absolutely ginormous, and then you have Uncle Sam's in need of a Lend-Lease himself here. But in terms of features, we also got the ship and ship designer. We got ourselves government in exiles, naval treaties, which is a feature no one ever uses and just chooses to ignore very quickly. One of the most important features is sea control, which you can't do in the base game, by the way, Paradox. I think you should change that because this is so damn useful. You also got expeditionary force requests, minelaying, minesweeping, amphibious vehicles, faction leadership usurping, so you can steal the allies. You get pride of the fleet and supervised states, which I hate. So in terms of what it added and all the content it added for a whole bunch of nations, like 4 nations essentially getting good rework, well, 2 getting a very big rework, and then the other 2 getting just a whole bunch of content. I think Man the Guns pretty good. And I do think it is almost teetering into A tier, but not quite. I think it is definitely above Waking the Tiger a bit in terms of the content in the focus trees that you can play and the features it adds. So B tier, definitely where it belongs. Okay, next up, we may have a bit of a controversial one. It's La Resistance. So going from Man the Guns and then into La Resistance is kind of a bit of a slap in the face. Yep, you just got some of the best content the game's added. I mean, the Dutch focus tree, the UK, like historical paths are actually really good. The Mexican tree's insane. You get ship designers, and then you come along and La Resistance sits on your lap and proceeds to vomit everywhere. Yep, now the big thing they added was the intelligence agency, which does give you a whole bunch of stuff that you can do, but is never done, because it's never worth doing, except for one thing, which is collaboration governments. Yeah, so if we're talking just in terms of features, we only get the intelligence agencies, air reconnaissance from your planes, armored cars, collaboration governments, and then scout planes, which, you know, just saying it out loud really puts in perspective what this DLC added. Now, in terms of focus trees, it did give you a reworked French focus tree with a whole bunch of ahistorical routes you can go. It gave you Spain and the Spanish Civil War rework, which, yeah, it ain't great. Now, sure, I mean, if you look at the Spanish focus here, it looks like there is so much to do, but a lot of it is just compacted down into one path. It looks like a lot, but each one of these is all one path and the rest gets locked. And honestly, a lot of these paths are absolute stinkers. Some of them we've covered, some of them I've never covered just because they are so bad. I think the one where you become a Soviet puppet going down the communist side, I can't even see it. I think it's over here somewhere, but it is very bad. Yeah, it's over here when you get turned into a Spanish puppet of the Soviets, and then if you want to break free, you do have to go to war with them, which you by the way, you have to finish them off. You have to fully capitulate the Soviets to get out of that war. It's ridiculous. And then you also have the mechanics for the Spanish Civil War, so actually getting to the path you want out of the paths that you can pick is also a bit of a colossal RNG fest sometimes. It's not very good. It's a bit of a pain. And then also, you get the Portuguese focus tree as well, which ain't too in-depth, but you do get the fun path of doing the Brazil-Portugal Empire. And yeah, that's kind of cool. But, you know, it's just like there's just so much stuff that got added in Man the Guns. You got really solid focus trees. The French tree, I didn't really say too much on, but it is pretty good. It's got a lot of stuff that you can try out, but the paths tend to end very quickly once you've got down the Portuguese tree, very small, very compact, but it does have some solid paths. The Spanish one is an absolute mess nowadays to look through, and then on top of fighting the Civil War every time, I think it's safe to say that La Resistance, it did add collab government, so I could put it in C for collab governments. But considering I've been told by a lot of you guys that you just turn this DLC off so that you don't have to deal with the hassle of the operations and how it messes things up for the Civil War, I'm really teetering on putting it in a D tier, but yeah, is it that bad? You know, I think there are worse ones. So for now, I'm going to put it in like a low C tier, as in you don't actually really need this DLC in the game. You could play the game without La Resistance and probably not even notice half the damn features that it adds, unless you really like armored cars. In that case, you may notice a few things and put this up to S tier. But for now, La Resistance is going in C. I did talk a lot of smack, but you know, it's no Together for Victory or Dare for Dishonor, I gotta say that much. But it is close. We may come back to that one. Okay, now it's time for controversy. It's Battle of the Bosporus. Okay, Battle of the Bosporus is a really weird DLC because it was rebranded, or it came out as a country pack, not an expansion, just a country pack. So there are no new features, only focus trees for 3 nations. And in the UK, this DLC is currently priced at £8.50. Now for £8.50, you might as well just go ahead and take your testicles and twist them really tightly, because it'd be as much fun as playing Turkey in this damn DLC. Yeah, I think it's pretty infamous that Turkey's focus tree is an absolute colossal mess, and I did hear that it was actually outsourced, so it wasn't made directly by Paradox, and you can kind of tell. Now, there's going to need a citation needed on that. That's just something that has been said to me and has probably been around the airwaves for a while, but all these focus trees, I believe, were just made by a third party. Turkey's focus tree, for one, absolutely huge, okay? But the paths and, like, the intricacies of actually going down the paths are just such a mess. It's a spaghetti of headache trying to figure this thing out sometimes. On top of that, something that I haven't touched on yet is a lot of these focuses, especially in the old focus trees, are now pretty worthless. You got 70-day focuses out of the wazoo. And I know what you're thinking, 70-day focuses, they're not too bad. But if you think about it, you've already come down all the way through all these 70-day focuses over here, just to get over in the actual part of your tree you want to be doing, like over here, and all you get for another 70 days is a tactical bomber model, 100% research bonus, and a 50% cost reduction for air doctrine. Bearing in mind, you're probably in the 40s by now, so you need neither of those. It's absolutely ridiculous. Another 70-day focus just to join the allies. You need both of these focuses up here, 140 days, and then another one just to join the allies. Yeah, this thing is just bloated. 70 days, 70 days, 70 days, and then over here you get the partnership with Bulgaria finally, and then finally over here you get yourself some war goals. It's so slow, it's so painful. I'm dreading having to play Turkey more. Now they have reworked Turkey a couple times. I made a few of these focuses, 35 days, but there is still just so much, so slow, so painful. It's just, don't play Turkey. It is kind of weird because in contrast, I think the Bulgarian focus tree is pretty good. It also is extremely overpowered. It's compact. The paths aren't too confusing. They are still a little bit all over the place, I won't lie, but it's a lot better than the Turkish focus tree. So out of the nations in the pack, I think Bulgaria is really good. It's a very good and powerful focus tree where you can do a whole bunch of different paths, and some of them you can do the same thing even in a few of the paths, which is, it might sound bad, but it is actually kind of good. And then to top it off, you get the confusing, slow Turkish focus tree that will drain you until the end of time, because by the time you finally get somewhere, your hair's fallen out and that beard gut's hanging out just... And you get the Bulgarian focus tree, which is just weirdly good in a sea of turds. And then you have the third nation added onto this, which is Greece, which is just like... it feels like they phoned in the Greece focus tree so damn hard. Like in comparison, like you get so much in the Turkish tree. Sure, it's really long, it's really convoluted to get to. You get so much in the Bulgarian tree in the past you can't do, a really strong, really powerful. And then you just get the Greece tree, which is tiny. The paths end really quickly, and there's just not a lot of bang for your buck. Yeah, in comparison with the Turkish and the Bulgarian one, it really feels like this one just, you know, they didn't get, they couldn't think of too many ideas on what to actually do here. It's not very good. It's also kind of odd because if you do the Byzantium run, which you have to do over here, again, it's kind of convoluted on how you get to it, kind of Kaiserreich in a way, and on top of that, you also get focuses locked out if you don't do the Byzantium run over here. It's a little weird. There's no reason for these to even be shown if you can only do the Byzantium run with them. In fact, I think they should probably be moved over here, considering once you've actually revived Byzantium over here, you run out of stuff to do immediately. Now, people do have fun with the Greece Street. Don't think it's bad. You can have fun with it. I've had fun with the Greece Focus Street like a couple times now. It is good. You can get yourself a pretty strong economy going, a pretty strong little army you can hold out against the Italians and everyone else. It's pretty good for that. But it is just a bit of an outlier on the other two nations. Sure, the Turkish one is terrible, just too large, too slow. The Bulgarian, pretty good. And then the Greece one's just kind of in between them both, where it's not good, it's not bad, but, you know, it doesn't make me want to vomit like the Turkish one. Okay, I'm Alex the Rambling a bit too much about this DLC. One that I'm not even going to recommend you buy. You know, I've actually kind of self-hated that DLC so much, I've already just instinctively put it in D tier there. I am kind of tempted to put it in F tier, but realistically, if anything, I should move Dare for Dishonor over Battle for the Bosphorus down there. You know, it is a country pack. It is, you know, advertised as a country pack. The Bulgarian tree's pretty good. The Greece tree's kind of meh. It's £9. I just, you know, is it? I feel like Together for Victory. Is it worse or better than Together for Victory? I mean, it's probably worse, realistically. You get one good nation for £9. Okay. Yeah. That feels right. Yeah, although I guess it is a little bit better than Death or Dishonor. Those focus trees are really bad, whereas the Bulgarian one is pretty good. If I could just rate the Bulgarian focus tree, you know, it'd be an A tier or an S tier. But I can't, because it's strapped onto the Turkish focus tree. This is objective, by the way. You might enjoy these DLCs and these nations. Please don't carve on my house. Okay, now out of the stink that is Battle for the Bosphorus, it's time for No Step Back. Okay, now all the Hoi 4 DLC that we got, this is probably one of the only ones on Steam that actually has a mostly positive review. And oh boy, is it mostly positive in my head too. In fact, I think it's one of the strongest DLCs and one of the ones that I had the most fun with when it came out. It's kind of weird because a lot of the features that are actually really good came with the free update that came out with this. So stuff like the new logistics system, which is miles better than the old one, by the way, once you understand it. Some people still struggle with it, but it is a lot better than simply just building infrastructure in province. It also added the tank designer, which is very good. You know, a lot of people, again, still struggle with the tank designer, but it is very, very good. It also added the military spirits and this whole system. You can actually set your tactics now for your actual armies. You also got yourself floating harbors, railway guns, train variants, and scorched earth. But the real creme de la creme of this DLC is the Soviet focus tree. The first DLC focus tree that really changed how Paradox make these things. Yeah. The Soviet focus tree, I think, is one of the best. Like, simply put, it looks a lot. Like, there is a lot in here, but you don't have to do them all. And that's how it was meant to be played. Yeah, I mean, look, there is just so much you can do. But realistically, you never really do half of this in a game. I'm sure if you played to 1950, you've rinsed this thing dry, though. I know I definitely have a few times. It's just one of those focus trees where you could just do a historical route and then just kind of pick and choose what you want to play and what your play style is. Usually, you'd never do expand the Red Fleet or anything Navy-wise with the Soviets, but you could, and it's there to give you that option. I mean, I'm sure if, you know, some people don't do too much air, which is kind of weird in my book, so you could just ignore the air part. You could go over here to the diplomacy side and ignore half of this diplomacy stuff. You won't even have to get involved in Asia most of the damn time, but you could. You have that option. And that's not even on top of like the alt history paths you can do. There is so much in here, a lot of flavor and a lot of choice. And overall, I think it's incredibly fun. It's one of those that I can always come back to, and no matter what, have a good game. Even if I'm not recording, sometimes I'll just hop on, play a Soviets game, and go wild. Now, the Soviets weren't the only ones that actually got a update here. You also got the Baltics. The Baltics all got a focus tree, and sure, a lot of them do just share the exact same thing, but again, they're all really solid focus trees. And then you also get the Polish update as well. I think technically if you already had like the weird Polish DLC that I think you got as a pre-order, I can't remember, you got this for free. I'm not sure, but the Polish focus tree also just very, very fun. It's just wild like how many choices you actually get as the Polish and like your alt history paths. I mean, sure, a lot of them you do end up just holding against the Germans and the Soviets, but those are one of the most fun games you can have when the enemy is grinding upon you and you're just trying to cry and not die. Yeah, definitely very fun. Poland, the Baltics, Soviets, really solid features, really good update that came with this. I'm not going to rate the update, obviously, but you also get all the good features from the DLC. You get solid focus trees. It's gonna be, in my opinion, the first S tier, and maybe one of the only S tiers from this list. Okay. Here comes an interesting one, By Blood Alone, which is actually on here twice, I realize. Okay, now By Blood Alone has a very bad review on Steam. Very, very bad review. And honestly, I think it's a little bit unwarranted. Now, I think a big part of why it has a terrible review, and you can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments if you disagree with me, is the fact that when this DLC came out, it came out with a pretty broken update. And even some of the focuses were, let's just say, a little bit balked. And I can't understand people hating on the DLC for that reason, but it's hard to grasp why people hate it nowadays, because I think it's actually alright. In comparison to No Step Back, I do think it is quite a big step back, funnily enough. But just like the Soviet focus tree, I think the Italian focus tree is also an absolute S-tier focus tree. It's insane how it went from the worst focus tree in the game to objectively one of the best. Yeah, we also got ourselves the plane designer, which, you know, some people not a big fan of, and I kind of agree, because realistically there's only one plane variant you'll ever have to make, and the AI, they can't compete with it. So a lot of this tends to be pretty, like, just redundant in terms of features, but you can, if you want to, work around it and make some little memey stuff that does work. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard to go out of your way to research some of the stuff in here, and hey, even some of this is new, like these heavy bombs and upgraded torpedoes and the splitting of the cannons that got added after. But the only other features that got added was divisional commanders, unit medals, and peace conference extra demands. The peace conference got reworked in the update, and then you get a few added stuff in the DLC for them. Oh, also trade embargoes. Have you ever used a trade embargo in single player? The only other time I see like trade embargoes is when the AI has been trade embargoing me because I annexed Bhutan. But it is definitely warranted that this DLC does deserve criticism, because you can't just go into it buying the Italian one when this is a full price DLC, £16 for only... The only real features that you get from it is the extra peace conference demands, in my opinion. I mean, you don't need division commanders or anything like that, or putting medals on them. So, yeah, it's kind of weird that, you know, that you'd be paying full price just to click promote on this guy instead of just clicking promote like down here when you need a new general. Also, unit medals are just kind of, you know, just something you can sometimes be bothered to do. It's such a clunky way of actually giving them stuff, and it also costs political power, which usually you don't want to be spending at the start of the game, and the only time the division medals ever really make a difference is at the beginning of the game. So for £16 you get a couple extra things in the peace conference, trade embargoing, divisional commanders, unit medals, and then the plane designer. And then you get the Italian focus tree, which is the best thing in it. But now comes the bad things. The Swiss focus tree. Yeah, who plays the Swiss? Oh, and the Ethiopian focus tree, which I don't like. I don't like playing Ethiopia. I think as soon as you've beaten the Italians, which, okay, holding off against the Italians as the Ethiopians is fun. It's pretty good. But as soon as you've done that, it feels like your game is over. Yeah, I'm sure people can have fun as like Ethiopia and figure out a good way of going about how to really like just get the best out that you can. But I think it's just one of the worst focus trees. But there's so much in it, and there's just, you get nothing from it. There are so many focuses, and they give you nothing. It's so hard to, like, get an economy built up. You're getting it so late. It's just, like, it's painful. And I think one of the most painful things you can do is actually doing the Pan-Africanism or all this stuff down here, because it requires a absolute ridiculous amount of political power. And hot tip, you don't get a lot of political power as the Ethiopians. In fact, you get like none. Yeah, the Ethiopian tree is just like, it ain't good. It's really not fun to play Ethiopia past beating the Italians. Now, the Swiss focus tree, I gotta say, is another absolute mess of a focus tree. Yeah, I mean, you know, the Always Sunny meme with the Pepe Sylvia? That's what it kind of feels like, trying to piece together the Swiss focus tree at times on what you need to do to get where. Sure, it's not as bad once you just put your mind to it, but like having not played the Swiss for a while, just having to remember how you do stuff, it's frying my brain even thinking about it. Yeah, in terms of nations that I play in Hoi 4, if we could get the statistics up for that somehow, you'd find the Swiss at like 0.0001% played, same with the Ethiopians. Italians, though, you know, they'd be up there. Bibbidi-babbidi, that's a spicy meatball. But, you know, I do think people get this DLC a bit of a bad rap. I think the features, you know, the plain designer is pretty good. The Peace Steel extra trade embargo, not very good, not worth money. Oh, the Italian focus tree is so good. It's so damn good. But you do get a lot of it just in the base game now for free. So, you know, do you pay for this? If you really like the Italians and playing the Italians, buy it for the expanded Italian tree. if you really want to eat that spicy meatball. Yeah, but, you know, for the rest of it, you could probably go without, which means... you know, is it as bad? Is it worse than La Resistance? You know, it's so painful. It's so painful, but I think it is like a C tier. But just for the fact the Italian focus tree is, you know, it's good, I'm going to put it up there. But that is a personal bias. I think realistically, a lot of you guys may even knock it further down than that. But I do think... that is where it is for me. Okay. I'm sorry. I've got another By Blood Alone. We'll put this one in S tier for the Italian. Okay, we'll put it there. Okay, it's time for Arms Against Tyranny. Yep. For a full price DLC, you get yourself the International Arms Market, the MIOs, which a lot of people hate, equipment presets, and Special Forces Doctrine. I always forget. You have to pay for this. Oh yeah, you also get focus trees for Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Iceland, and Finland. Yeah, it's kind of hard to really describe how I feel about this DLC because, you know, the focus trees are really good for Sweden. The Norwegian focus tree is really not that good. It's not terrible. It's not horrendous. It's just not that good. The Finnish focus tree is pretty good in the fact it makes Finland absolutely disgusting to invade. Very fun in that regard. You also have the Danish focus tree, which might as well just say surrender somewhere up here. You know, just surrender right there. Yeah, I think out of the three, Norway, Sweden, I guess, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark. Denmark's probably the one I have the least amount of experience with. Don't really play a lot of Denmark because I don't really want to. But it's kind of weird because the focus trees do allow you all to become really powerful, excluding Iceland. Iceland we'll get to later, but it's a whole different story. The Swedish one is definitely the most powerful. You can become such a absolute juggernaut of Sweden. It's amazing. Very fun to play as well. The Finns, I do think, rely on the gimmick of you always doing the lone wolf, in my opinion. Obviously, you could do the rest of them, but I think the the most fun you can have as Finland is obviously holding back the Soviets and then going to create Greater Finland. Of course, that's just objectively my opinion. You might actually like doing something like Red Finland. You know, you might be a bit of a weirdo. The Norwegian one, you know, I've played it like a couple of times. I tried to do the communist path. It wasn't very fun. And then I also tried to do the German path over here, and it was just broken beyond belief on release or something. I don't even know where the German path is. You know, this whole thing's a bit of a mess. You know, maybe I should give the Norwegians another go at some point and see what this is about. But I didn't have too much fun as them. Iceland, in my opinion, just a meme. You know, they just added a little bit of a little bit of spicy flavoring on top for the other focuses. They didn't put too much effort into this. It has like it's one or two gimmicks, but that's about it. Yeah, not very good, not very bad. You will never play Iceland, so unless you play Iceland and then do a heavy tank build and it actually works, watch that video. I made that. You know, the MIOs, I do sometimes do a lot in games. Sometimes I don't do any at all. But the one feature I really have come to really like is the international market. As a small nation, actually just buying the few pieces of starting equipment that you want is so good compared to you're not having this feature all, I guess. Considering you can like fill up your army and not have to worry about making something, it does really come in handy a lot of the time. Not so much selling equipment, only ever really buying. So I do think it makes the game better to have this feature. But again, the problem, like with By Blood alone, is that No Step Back was so good and added so much and was kind of just so on the nail that, it's never really got to that level of like feeling really good, you know? A DLC that came out and you feel great about. I mean, sure, it's Scandinavia, you know, people wanted it and the focus trees are good, you know, maybe not the Norwegian one, you know, I need to reference this later on when I've played 50 Norway games, but, you know, the focus trees are solid, the few features they add, again, they are solid, and I think it's kind of hard to say because I really like the Italian focus tree. It is better than By Blood alone. Arms Against Tyranny, I think it's an A tier. It's like the features in it are good. That I kind of went into it thinking it would be a B tier, but the more I said it out loud, the more I liked it and the stuff in it. You know, I'm sure some people don't like it too much because you don't play Scandinavia, and I don't really play Scandinavia that much, but they are fun. If you haven't given it a go, you probably would enjoy them a lot. They're pretty decent, pretty OP in what you can get. And the MIOs and the international market also really, really good. Oh, and Special Forces Doctrine too. That is absolutely insanely good. But I do think that should be a free feature. But we won't get into that because we're on to the last DLC, Trial of Allegiance. Okay, first off, big controversy with Trial of Allegiance is that a lot of people, me included, do think that this DLC for what it adds is very expensive. Yep, Trial of Allegiance, another DLC that is mostly negative on Steam. Alright, also, just like Battle for the Bosphorus, this is a country pack, not a expansion as they credit it, but it does cost more than Battle for the Bosphorus, which is, you know, the logic behind the pricing, you know, I won't even get into. But for the countries you get packs for, you have Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Paraguay and Uruguay, again, kind of like the Iceland in the other DLC, just a little bit extra, not a lot to do in here, and also they just kind of copy and paste half of it, so you know, it's nothing crazy. They do the same for the big nations as well. Some of this is just essentially all copy and pasted across the nations, nothing you know, crazy here, just a little bit of flavor in the editing of the text. But for the main bread and butter, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil, the most of the fun you're going to be having is with these nations because they have a lot of focuses and a lot of paths to do, which I gotta give it credit for. There's a lot in this DLC for the price. Now, when I say a lot, I mean focuses. I don't mean features. I mean just the sheer amount of paths you can do. There's a lot. I think a lot of the main criticism for the DLC is simply that, one, it's a country pack that costs more than the other country pack, and two, it's in South America, a region people don't really want to play in the World War II game because not a lot happened down here during World War II. So it's kind of really hard for me to rate this because I went into it not caring about this DLC at all, but I have played it, and sure, I've played a lot of it to the point I don't want to play it anymore, but it is really fun to play down here in South America now with these three nations. Of course, there are also meme and secret paths like Argentina and Chile, where you know, I ain't gonna go too much detail, but they did add just so much for so little nations historically relevant. And I do think it's not too fair to be judging on the price here, because, you know, the prices could be like 10 times higher in the future or 10 times lower. We don't know if it's all going to come to an end any minute now. And yeah, I think people can have fun with this DLC. Sure, for the price, you're probably gonna want to get it on sale. And I think if you did get it on the Steam Summer Sale, you'd definitely have 10 times the money and 10 times the fun with this DLC. Because overall, realistically speaking, if you are gonna play one of the free nations here, all you're gonna have to do is conquer all of South America, and then you core all of South America, and then that's it. That's the game for the majority of the playstyle down here. And there's only so many times you can just conquer all of South America and have fun with it. Believe me, when I played all of them like back to back, I was so done with South America, I never wanted to look back. But that doesn't mean I didn't have fun, because a lot of broken stuff did get added, and yes, Paradox is still nerfing these focuses into the ground, so it's hard to say what state they're going to be in whenever this video comes out, or in like a year later from this video. It is an absolute insane power creep what is in these focuses. I've gone over it so much in my videos at this point that I'm not going to bore you to death with that, but yeah, these focuses for these nations are insanely powerful compared to anything else in the game. Yeah, some people hate it, some people love it. I am more on the love side than the hate side for this. You know, there are issues with the focuses, mostly the fact you get stuck as like with 4 research slots max as South Americas, which is kind of weird, because only, you know, most focus trees allow you to get up to 5, some even 6, and obviously the gameplay loop is very similar between them all. Obviously you have a few of the meme paths, but mostly you're just going to be conquering all of South America. But again, other than the price, which is the main concern for most people, if I take that out of account, I do think it is a pretty good country pack for a region that, you know, you wouldn't expect to have fun in. Now, most people, I'm just going to say, probably don't want to play in South America, and I was one of them. I didn't want to play in South America at all, and if I played too much of the focuses in the trees that got added, I also don't want to go back to South America. I'm not going back to Mia. Yeah, but at the same time, I have had a lot of fun playing them. Like, a lot of fun. Just, I burnt myself out on them, so that's kind of giving me a bit of a, you know, push in the other direction, but objectively speaking, they're great. The focus trees are all really well put together. There's no features, obviously. If you take the price out of it and you have an interest in South America, you probably have a ton of fun in this DLC. But if you're just like wanting to play World War II historical Germany game and you don't want to play South America, you're probably just going to hate the even idea of this DLC and the fact that it costs 13 British pounds. So to that regard, I can understand why you guys might rate it lower than I'm about to. So for our last DLC for now, until they release a few more, which obviously is going to happen, Trial of Allegiance will be our finale. And I think I can pretty much put it around... no, that's too high. Wait. There. Yeah, I think there's some wiggle room that, you know, maybe I've kind of nostalgia blinded by Man the Guns and Waking the Tiger, but they did add so much good stuff that, you know, Trial of Allegiance, you can have fun with if you have a bit of history in South America potentially, and you really want to play down there. I think you can enjoy it a lot more than, say, By Blood Alone, which, unless you like the Italian tree, then it's up there. But I don't think these are too much of a hot take. I think Trial of Allegiance is pretty good. Some people hate it. I do enjoy it. It's just, you know, you're pretty samey. But, you know, from a month from now, I haven't played any Brazil. I might go back, have a Brazil game, and have a whale of a time. But I will never have a Swiss or an Ethiopian game and have a whale of a time. Just the Italian tree. The Italian tree is all I want in my life. You know, Man the Guns and Waking the Tiger, I do think could be lower nowadays. Potentially, like, this far over here in C tier, but, you know, we've got nothing in B tier, and there's nothing potentially here that I could say is in B tier. I'd be real with you. I mean, I'd love to be able to put a couple more up there and take Man the Guns off and Waking the Tiger off, because yes, objectively speaking, now that they're in the base game, they shouldn't even be there. So you know what? Saying that, actually, I'm gonna knock up Trial of Allegiance up to B tier. Yeah, Waking the Tiger and Man the Guns, when they came out, yeah, they're pretty good. Okay, they went hard. They brought some life back into the game for me personally, but you know, technically they're not. You can't buy them anymore. They're part of the base game. So if the base game should also be in B tier in that technicality, but you know, we're just going from objectively when they came out. So yeah, Trial of Allegiance, B tier. I'm gonna say it. It's bizarre to say that, you know, I've had more fun in South America than I have ever with the new spy rework from La Resistance, but it's true. And yeah, I wouldn't actually put Trial of Allegiance up there if we didn't have the technicality. The Man the Guns and Waking the Tiger, technically they're not DLCs anymore, but I think I'm happy with this list. I'd probably move Battle for the Bosphorus down lower if I could, but there appears to be nothing below this. But yeah, I don't know how you guys think about this. I think this is good, and I do think if you were to buy any of these DLCs, you should just buy No Step Back and go from there downwards. Okay, now I'm kind of like stun locking myself here. Trial of Allegiance deserves C tier. It's not a B tier, but you know what? No, we're locking it in C tier. I'm looking what's below it, and I've had more fun everything above Together for Victory, other than the Canada Tree. I'd put the Canada Tree a bit further up, but we can't do that. Everything above this C tier is good. I've had fun with all of this. I've not had a lot of fun down here. Speaking, I might even put La Resistance down there in D tier. Yeah, okay, now that's too hard of a take. I think it belongs in C tier. You know, I'm forever on the fence with the controversial takes here. Hey, but this video's probably gone on long enough. This is my final graph. I'm going to stick to it. Things may change, like I said. Realistically, Man the Guns, Waking the Tiger, C tier. Okay, you know, I will agree to that. But just from where they came out and the nostalgia around them, they're in B tier for me. If you were to come out and play these in the base game now, you wouldn't even notice anything from this. So yeah, just kind of funny. But yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta say. Did you enjoy this? Did you like this? Do you want more weird little tier lists? Leave a like, subscribe down below, please, and goodbye.